So it is cold today. It's probably one of the coldest days we've had so far, well, since summer probably. But anyway, yes, I'm out here warming my car up, and I had to go to Home Depot for a couple of things. But a couple of days ago, I was parked on a hill. Now, normally I don't use my e-brake. Well, it's erroneously called an e-brake. My parking brake. Normally I don't use my parking brake unless I'm parked on somewhat of an incline. I'm as guilty as everyone else. Unfortunately, when you don't use your parking brake, the return mechanism that's inside the caliper becomes stuck. And what will happen is when you release your parking brake, the return mechanism does not let go of the clamping force on your pads. And unfortunately, that means when you're driving down the road, you've got clamping force. In most cases, it will end up undoing itself, especially after you've used your brakes a couple of times. But in some cases, it'll stay like that. And I don't know if I ever mentioned it before in my GTP video, but I did have the same issue. And I used my parking brake every so often. But this car is now having that same issue, and I don't know if I'll be able to get it on camera, the sound that it makes. But essentially, it's just the pad rubbing up against the caliper. Rubbing up against the disc, and it's causing a squeaking sound. Now, another indication that you may have this problem is suddenly your driver information center will go haywire. You know, service ABS, service StabiliTrak, service this, service that. Essentially what's going on is it senses that a wheel is not moving or not moving as fast as the rest of them, and it goes haywire. So if you have this problem, if you have if you've got one that's completely locked up and will not release at all, then you're going to have to go to drastic measures, which I won't be able to demonstrate on camera, but essentially it means removing your wheel and basically forcing the caliper open. But what you can do is, if you notice that it is getting a little stuck, you put it in drive after you've released the brake and your car just sits there when normally it would start rolling forward. If you actually exercise the parking brake a couple of times, that will usually start to free it up. And so what I've been doing lately over the last couple of days is, while I'm sitting letting my car warm up, I will use my parking brake at least a dozen times, and you'll feel it. The first time you go to use it after you've been driving, it'll be kind of difficult to push down. It'll just feel like there's a lot of force against it. And then when you push it down for the second time, it'll feel really loose, almost like there's nothing there. So you know that the parking brake is still engaged at that point, simply because it's already engaged, so you don't have to use your foot force to engage it. But as you begin to release and you engage it, it'll become more and more difficult, and that's because the parking brake itself is starting to actually release, and it's starting to get to the point where it's able to release on its own. You can also push down on your brakes. I've heard that helps, but with the brake pad already engaged and the caliper already on the rotor, I've never really found that to really be any help, because it's already engaged, so you're just applying more force to it. Although it may help for you, but typically what I find is just exercising the parking brake usually is a good way of getting it to free up. Now, you may have an extreme circumstance where it's froze completely, and like I said, you have to take the wheel off, and then you have to actually charge yourself. You may also have an issue with linkage that has seized up, rusted up, whatever. And if you don't exercise your parking brake, then unfortunately that's going to happen with all the water, especially if you live in a northern state with salt and so on. With that cable just sitting there, it starts to corrode, it starts to cause all sorts of problems if it's not used. So that's just a little tip. I know it's something that you don't ever think about. It's something that I rarely think about, but on occasion when I use my parking brake, I just started recently noticing that it is getting hung up slightly. It's not bad where the car won't move at all, even with gas. It just doesn't roll forward until I start to go. Then you hear a little bit of squeaking, and then it just returns to normal. So, like I said, this is a good way to exercise that parking brake to make sure that it's going to release for you every time. And you do this with a new car, you do it with an older car, you just continuously exercise it so you don't lose it. Otherwise you have to go to some lengthy repairs possibly. So anyway, that's about it for that video, but I'll see if I can get a sound out of this thing so that you can hear it, possibly hear it. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it. I'm about ready to take off here. But anyway, I'm going to engage it one more time. Disengage. I'll turn my air off and roll. You may or may not be able to hear this. Did you feel that? I don't know if you can hear that squeak sound, but that is essentially the parking brake not releasing from the rotor. So that's what that noise is, but now it's gone away. It's completely gone away because it's freed up. So it's a good idea when you get in your car or when you leave your car, even if you don't think you're going to need your parking brake, which in most cases you don't, unless you're always parked on a hill or an incline of some kind. It's just a good idea to engage your parking brake. And I forget too. I've been more conscious about it recently, but I definitely forget. It's easy to forget. You know, if you don't need it, why would you use it? And all those kind of things. But it can lead to other problems. So hopefully that will kind of make you want to use your parking brake even if you don't need it. Give it some good exercise. So over the next couple of days, I'm going to really be exercising my parking brake, and hopefully it'll release it to the point where I don't have to have an issue with it anymore. It has gotten a lot better, so I already know. A lot of frost out there today. I already know that it is improving. So, all right, I'm gonna get back to driving, and I'll catch you guys later.